How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of the Groove Guild, the new podcast for the Blue Bassist channel, where I am going to be having conversations with other musicians about what inspired them to get into music, what inspires them to stay in music, what they've learned over their years pursuing music, and things like that. I got a lot of my ideas from Neil P. from Downtown Brown. I saw what he was doing, and I thought that it would be a lot of fun to do something similar as well. And so it seemed only fitting that my first guest be Neil P. from Downtown Brown. So let's run the intro riff. And I'm going to let him in here. How's it going, buddy?
Yeah.
So welcome to the Groove Guild. The very first episode of the Groove Guild.
Thanks for having me, man.
And this is going to be... So you and I have been friends for a long time. But I don't think we've ever really talked about a lot of the things that I want to talk about and want to bring up in that time.
Talk.
Mostly, so Downtown Brown, your first album was in 2001.
02.
02?
Yeah, the band started in 01. Yeah.
So how old were you when you started the band?
Well, I was 18 in 1999. So 99, 2000, I was 20 years old. Was I 20? If I was 18 in 99, then I was 19 in 2000. And then I was 20 in February of 2001. I turned 20. And then I was 20 years old.
Right on.
Yeah. And so I turned 21 in February of 2002. Yeah, that's crazy. And then that was when I turned 21 was the first time we played the Shelter in Detroit.
Was that Downtown Brown's first show?
No. Downtown Brown had been playing locally at places in like the East Side Detroit suburbs, East Point, and then we played in the West Side Detroit suburbs at places like the Token Lounge,
sure, and
a little coffee shop called the Bean Machine. And really, the band started in the basement of the house we were living in from 2000, 2001. In 2000, I started going to art school at the College for Creative Studies in Detroit. And I was like, fuck this. And in 2001, I quit. And I'm just like, I'm going to do the band full time. I just knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And it's taken me on this weird journey. It's there's been ups, there's been downs, but ultimately I've had it's been a life. It's been 20 years.
Yeah, right.
Which is insanity.
So, obviously most people would be familiar with you through Downtown Brown or some of the work that you've done with as a backing band for HR from Bad Brains or as singing for Reagan Youth.
That's all recent. That's all 2019 is when all that stuff happened. So yeah, generally people know me because of the band Downtown Brown that I've been doing for, since 01. So
but
19.
What was going on before Downtown Brown?
Well, pretty much in high school, I had another band, which was the baby version of Downtown Brown. It was called the Freeloaders. And, in 98, we played a venue called St. Andrews Hall in Detroit, which is like a legendary concert venue. And we played this Battle of the Bands, which essentially was a battle of the ticket sales. But all these high school bands from around the Detroit metro area all were selling tickets. So St. Andrews Hall is, it's a 1,000 capacity venue. It was full when we played. And I remember being on stage with my band, the Freeloaders, and we just lit the place up. There was something magic in the air that night, and that's when I got the bug. That was the initial high that I've been chasing my entire music career is trying to replicate that high that I got in 1998, playing in front of a packed venue, you know? And that's essentially, that was like my first hit of heroin, because I had played shows before that, but I've never played a show on that scale. Like we played the high school talent show, and we played a place called Pharaoh's Golden Cup, which was like the coffee shop that a lot of the punk ska bands of the late 90s in the Metro Detroit area would play. Suicide Machines, Mustard Plug, stuff like that. Back in that late 90s ska boom that was led by Mighty Mighty Boss Tones and whatnot.
Yep.
And yeah, so I just played at crappy little coffee shops, or I played, in the cafeteria of my high school, or I played the auditorium of my high school, and we played some like crappy little parties. But when we actually won that Battle of the Bands in 98, we played in front of a packed St. Andrews Hall. There was like maybe like 800, 900 people watching us. And then we got first place. We won the Battle of the Bands. So I was like, wow, like not only did that feel amazing, but we beat everybody. So that gave me, I'm just like, I'm good at this. And I've been chasing that shit ever since.
In the past 20 years, have you caught that? Have you gotten back to
yes.
to that?
Yeah. But it's been, like it hasn't been as euphoric. It's like they say with heroin, you're just chasing that original high. I would say there's nothing that could compare to the euphoria of that initial giant show that I played when I was 17 years old, but I played a bunch of gigs that, were in front of as many people, and it's still a high, but it's weird. Once you get involved in the industry, it becomes like, it's kind of like you're just clocking in. You're just like, oh, I'm doing this again. Like I still really enjoy playing live music, but it's not as magical as it is like when you're like really young and you're super nervous and you haven't done it a lot. There's like higher stakes almost, and it's more of a new feeling. So I would equate it to like when you start having sex, or when you first like kiss someone you're really attracted to. It literally is the most euphoric thing. Even just a kiss. I remember being in 8th grade and like making out with my girlfriend for the first time, and like it was an insane rush of dopamine, and
that combination of excitement and sick to your stomach, but it's all coalescing into this goodness.
It's all new, and that's the thing about chasing a new feeling like that. When we played in front of that many people when I was 17, the feeling was new, and so when you replicate that, or if you get in a similar situation, let's say like playing, a gig opening for Insane Clown Posse in front of 1,000 juggalos, that was a different kind of nervousness, not as much of a euphoria as like am I going to get killed? And yeah, so, but at that point, that was like 2011 when that happened. So it's like, I had already been 10 years into being in this band. So it's weird. It just isn't, it doesn't make you as high, but it's still an amazing experience playing in front of lots of people. But you end up just spinning your wheels a lot, because in between those moments where you're playing in front of a big crowd, or you're experiencing these high highs, there's, 30, 50, 70 gigs where you're playing in front of 20 people, and where you have to really fight to get their attention, and where it's not that great. And that's the conundrum, and that's like being an independent band, is for every show where you play in front of a lot of people where there's magic in the air, there's like 50 shows that blow dick, and not in the good way, Yeah. Yeah.
Have you noticed that feeling change at all with some of these more recent opportunities? Like, I imagine that you probably never thought you'd be in the backing band for HR or singing for Reagan Youth. Like, both of those are, you just say that, and it just these monumental things. Does that, because it's not your baby like Downtown Brown, How does that feeling differ when you're performing with HR or with Reagan Youth?
You know, honestly, because it's not my baby, it felt like essentially I'm a hired gun and I'm here to do the best job I possibly can do. And I'm here to try to perform, keeping just with a high amount of respect for those who came before me. Like to be playing Dr. No riffs, and Dr. No's the guitar player of Bad Brains. To be playing Dr. No riffs with being on stage with a legend like HR, that there's like an amount of pressure involved in that, where you just want to do a good job. And so it definitely isn't. I definitely wasn't as free as I am with Downtown Brown, because when I'm doing the Downtown Brown thing, I'm just a little kid, and I'm just being weird, and I feel very free. But when you're hired to fill the shoes of someone that's like not around anymore, or someone that like, you know, someone that's legendary, like to try to fill the shoes of Dave Insurgent from Reagan Youth. I mean, how do you do that? You know, he was a pretty enigmatic frontman, and he was just really cool. And and you know what I mean? So you get in your head more. You're not as free to just like let it all loose. You're like, really, you're doing a job.
Sure.
And you just want to remember the lyrics. You want to like make Reagan Youth look as cool as you possibly can. So yeah, I didn't say much in between songs. I didn't do my bullshit banter in between songs. With HR, it's like I didn't say shit. I just sat there, played guitar, sang when I was supposed to, and between the songs, HR would talk to the audience. It's his group. It's his show. Yeah. So it definitely is a totally different experience. It's a whole different thing.
So we've talked a bit about some of the projects that you've been involved with, but what about little baby Nebo? What about what got you into music? What was do you remember the first thing you ever listened to that made you go, oh, I need to look for more of this?
My mom somewhere has like Super 8 footage of me with one white glove on and a Michael Jackson outfit doing dances to Michael Jackson, like little fat white kid trying to moonwalk and shit. So, there was always music in the house. My mom played a lot of Motown, Earth, Wind and Fire, a lot of, when Michael Jackson came out, I remember hearing Vincent Price's rap in Thriller. And I was in the basement there was like pinball machines. I was in some kid's basement that my parents were friends with his parents, and they did a little play date where they hung out with their friends. My parents hung out with their adult friends. And then I was in the basement with listening to Thriller. And I remember being like, this is like scary, spooky. I remember hearing Vincent Price and just being like, this is, so I've always been drawn to sound. Ever since I can remember, I've always been like doing little beatboxes and singing and trying to emulate sounds that I've heard. So I was always just drawn to sound. And when I really fell in love with music is when I got a tape player. And this was in probably like 88 or maybe like 87. And I started buying cassette singles of the songs I liked on the radio. Like I had, some Guns N' Roses stuff but that was all the way in the 90s. So I'm trying to think of when I got this tape player, but Guns N' Roses came a little bit later, but like Right Said Fred, I'm Too Sexy, and like Snow, Summer, stuff like that. Big songs on the radio. And I would just wear out these tapes and I would just listen over and over again to this music. And I just became obsessed with it at a really early age, to the point where in 91, when the Use Your Illusion albums came out from Guns N' Roses, that shit changed my life. I saw Slash and Axl Rose as superheroes, and I just wanted to be them. I would listen to Axl Rose and I would like jot down what I thought the lyrics were, and I was way off. But I would sit there and try to emulate his voice. And then, eventually I begged my parents to give me a guitar, and in middle school I got a guitar, and then it's just the rest is history. I've just been obsessed with sound and making sounds, and also the whole performance aspect. I remember I was always like in the choir in elementary school, and they gave me parts because I could sing when I was a kid. And so it really fed into, I didn't realize this till very recently. It really fed into this, this kind of PTSD that I have from growing up abused by my dad. If I was able to attract positive attention to myself by singing or dancing or acting like a fool, it made me feel good. So I would do it all the time on the playground. I was always trying to attract attention to myself. And once I realized I could sing and all right, the singing teacher's like, let's put this little chubby kid and let's put him in a blue wig and paint his face blue and have him like sing really obnoxiously in front of all the parents. And so I caught the performing bug really early, like 3rd grade. I have a photo of it on my Facebook. So yeah, it all plays into just me wanting to be told by people that I'm good, because I wasn't getting that at home.
So when you started, when you got a guitar, I assume you started lessons along with that.
Yeah, my mom was real cool. She got me lessons at a place called the Get Fiddler in Northville, Michigan. And my first guitar teacher, he's probably still alive. His name is or was Marv Conrad. And he was just kind of a mullet dude that taught at the local small town guitar shop. And he taught me power chords, and he taught me how to do my first half bends, full bends. And then,
yeah. So what were those early lessons like? Like, I know when the few lessons that I took when I started playing, it was largely me coming in and going, I want to learn this song. And then kind of whatever fundamentals would end up being necessary in learning that song, I'd end up kind of getting as a part of that. Was it a similar experience for you, or was it more like rooted in theory and technique?
There was no theory or technique until I was in high school and I joined the jazz band. So, and that's when I took lessons from this guy named Bill, who taught me ninth chords, diminished chords, taught me chord voicings and stuff like that. But in the very beginning, all it was some very basics, how to hold the pick, how to read tablature. And then after that, he would teach me songs. He would like write in this tablature manuscript. He would write, here's how to play. It started off very basic. Here's how to play Smoke on the Water. Here's how to play Iron Man, and he would just write all that down. And then it got to the point where I picked it up relatively quickly, and I started bringing in tapes, and he would listen to the tape. He would figure it out in real time. And then he would write the tabs for whatever I brought in. And he was pretty good at it. So he would write the tabs for whatever I brought in the tablature manuscript. And then I would just practice. And then eventually got to the point where I stopped taking lessons from him because he was kind of like my beginner teacher. And then I got to the point where I started learning, being able to do essentially what he did for me, but I could do it myself, like teach myself Green Day, teach myself Rancid, teach, I would buy the tablature books for Metallica. I would buy the tablature books for Megadeth. I would buy the tablature books for Sublime, stuff like that. So yeah, so I didn't really need him anymore until I got into the jazz band. I was in Jazz 2, it wasn't the premier jazz band. It was like the backup jazz band. And that's when I started going to Bill. I forget what Bill's last name was, but he's the one that taught me all the different chord voicings and, bar shapes for ninth chords, seventh chords, minor seventh chords, diminished chords, stuff like that. And stuff I still use to this day. But my formal training, guitar training, actually ended in high school. I'd like to have a teacher that could really, we could work on some advanced techniques,
Yeah, I've been thinking about going back and doing lessons. Like I've been playing on and off for, God, like nearly 28 years at this point. And I feel like I need to find a teacher. I feel like, there's always something left to learn. Right. But now, it's a matter of finding a teacher who's better than me.
Yeah. Once you get to a level, you really need to find someone that's on a way higher level to learn from. I know a dude from Boston that went to Berkeley, and he's this like mad virtuoso guy. And I used to drive him around when I first got to LA, and I used to drive him to work every day, but I was a fucking idiot because what I should have been doing is when I wasn't driving him around, I should have been sitting there and having him teach me play guitar. But it's a grind out here in LA. You spend a lot of time chasing money and struggling, and it really subtracts from the time that you have to hone shit. And that's why, like, right now, this pandemic is actually kind of wonderful for me because I've been able to learn a lot of new skills just because I haven't been running around as much. There's no fucking gigs. There's no touring. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna teach myself how to engineer my own audio. I'm going to teach myself how to, do live loops. I'm going to teach myself how to stream. I'm going to teach myself about videography, cinematography, photography, So I feel like as terrible as all this shit is, it's really giving me a chance to learn new shit. And one of those things I should be doing is practicing my guitar a whole lot. But
I was going to ask, what over the years, how has your practice regimen changed? Like, I imagine probably early on you had a lot more time and you could probably practice more regularly. Have you done any big drop-offs in practicing, or have you stayed pretty consistent?
If anything, the biggest drop-off happened once I started touring all the time. I basically never practiced. When we were doing 100, 150 shows a year, I was so busy driving around in a van, I didn't even want to look at a guitar. My practice was going on stage every night and playing Downtown Brown shit live, So I have a lot of muscle memory, and I have a lot of, proficiency playing my own shit. But as far as like working on new techniques, that fell off 2014, 2013. 2013 is when we really started touring a whole lot. 2012. Yeah, so if anything, I'm practicing more now. I'm just not learning any new techniques, but my chops are a little tighter because I'm streaming myself playing guitar live multiple times a week, and sometimes for like multiple hours every stream. So yeah, I feel like I'm definitely practicing more, but I'm not honing any sort of new techniques or learning any sort of. And that's something that I'd like to change, but there's only so much time in the day. Like it took me like 3 months to figure out how to set up live streaming and how to get the camera right and how to, fucking with different interfaces and different microphones. And then this loop machine, there's like a huge learning curve for all this stuff, because when I was in my 20s, when I was drinking a lot, what I should have been doing is not drinking. I should have been figuring out how to do all of this self-production shit over a decade ago. But
to be fair, all that self, production stuff was less accessible a decade ago.
It was more expensive. Yeah. I remember in 05, 06, the type, if you wanted a camera that's as good as this like A6400 I got, if you wanted something that quality, it would cost $5,000.
Oh yeah. Or more.
There was a Sony like shoulder mount camera that these guys I know, they filmed everything with. And it was a $5,000 camera. And I remember just being like, wow, in order to get decent footage that's so far out of the realm of reality. And also, as far as all of the audio engineering stuff is concerned, I was thoroughly convinced I'm going to have to go into a studio and pay an engineer anytime I want to record anything for the rest of my life. And now it's like, why? When I can engineer I could get good, clean audio by myself and then maybe have an engineer mix and master it as like a final step.
Yeah.
So
you could even get, good monitors and at least do mixing and then pay someone for some pro mastering.
Yeah. But mixing is a whole art in itself. I have two JBL monitors that I bought recently, but it's really hard, even with all the time in the world that, we have all, like, at least I do, because I'm unemployed and my girlfriend's unemployed. So we have all the time right now to work on all of this crazy shit. But even if you're having a productive day where you're sitting down at your computer 10 hours, there's only so much you can learn, and there's only so much focus you could keep. So, I haven't been playing my guitar, but I've been learning a whole lot of different shit.
So you said you started touring really heavily around 2013. Is that right?
Well, no. Well, okay. It like we started doing our first West Coast tour was in 2007.
Okay.
We were touring a lot.
What was that like? Your first big tour, what was that experience like? Were you booking it all yourself, or
MySpace? And then we had Barry Donegan from Look What I Did, the band Look What I Did. He had a booking company, and what was it called? They used to book Foxy Shazam before Foxy Shazam got signed.
Oh, right on.
And so the guys in Foxy are like, you should talk to this dude, Barry. He puts together DIY shows through MySpace. And we paid him a flat rate. He didn't do a percentage. We paid him a flat rate, and he like got us a bunch of shows. But most of them were at like all ages coffee houses around the country. But that was our demographic at the time during the MySpace era. Like, we wanted to play for kids. Still do. It's just harder now.
Yeah.
Especially, yeah. Well, it's impossible now because there are no gigs.
Yeah, but impossible now, but in general, all ages gigs are difficult to book.
It seems like if you want to play an all ages show, it has to be like a DIY thing, or you have to be a big drawing band playing like a corporate venue that has all ages,
that has the resources to sink into making their show legally acceptable for all ages.
Yeah, legal and all ages. Yeah. That's why, a lot of the all ages shows in the last few years that Downtown Brown has played have all been like at DIY spaces, basements, places like Seventh Circle Collective in Denver, like DIY, like punk type venues that have no alcohol, because
that's usually community spaces that
but back to 2007, so Barry helped us out a little bit, but Harry Bob and I, Harry Bob probably did most of the booking actually through MySpace, and then he did all the driving because I was a full-blown alcoholic at the time. So that first tour in 2007, it was a blur, because all I remember is like being in Prescott, Arizona. I remember spilling out of the van onto Sunset Boulevard the first time we ever played the Viper Room. And I remember I just was drunk all the time. But so my memory of the first West Coast tour, and what's funny too is like Harry Bob talked about it on my podcast, Supcast, about how instead of going to the East Coast, we decided our first tour, we were just going to go all the way to the West Coast from Detroit. And which is hilarious because you can get to the East Coast in 10, 14 hours. It takes 36 hours and however many days to get to the West Coast from Detroit. But we're just like, fuck it. And we did it. And yeah, that was my intro into DIY touring, was booking a DIY tour on MySpace with Harry Bob. And then he drove his van, and Don and myself, we're just getting drunk. And it was awesome.
So you have good memories of that first tour. Did anything go horribly wrong? Was it a learning experience for you at all, or was it just a drunken blur?
Honestly,
Harry Bob got all the lessons.
Yeah, Harry Bob got all the lessons because he did. He was the one babysitting us assholes, and he just wanted to tour. So he even said this on the podcast. He's like, I wanted to tour so bad, and I wanted to be in a touring band so bad. He had to wait for me to quit my job in 2006. I walked out of my job, and I'm just like, because I had insurance and I was getting spiffs, and I was pretty much a full-time employee of Empire Today LLC, which is the 800-588-2300
Empire
Today.
Yeah.
And yeah, I quit that job and I just called Harry Bob. I'm like, let's do it. And then by 07, you know, I was in Los Angeles, California playing the Viper Room and just drunk as sin, talking all types of shit. I had this really combative attitude, especially when I was sauced up, and I was super confident. I was like thoroughly convinced that we were going to take over the world. And yeah, it was something else, man. I don't know.
Obviously since then you've done a lot of touring, like a whole lot of touring. You're used to spending over 100 days on the road a year.
Yeah.
What
there was a string of like 3 years where we did 150 plus.
God damn.
And that was like, I want to say it was 2016. We did a fuckload of tour dates. 2015 is we did the most. 2014, we did a lot. 2013, when Masters of the Universe came out, we didn't do as much because we were dealing with Ron was dealing with his mom being sick.
Yeah.
And 2013 is when we were like, we can't have anyone else but Ron do this. 2014 is when we started having other bass players. And then it's been just a rotating cast of bass players after that. 2012 is when we first started touring with Psycho Stick. So we did, and Ron was on all those tours. So I would say 2012, we probably did like 80 shows. 2013, we probably did like maybe 80. 2014, definitely over 100. 2015, 150 for sure. 2016, over 100. And then I moved out here and everything got way harder. So.
Yeah. Over those years, have there been any just like holy shit moments of, you know, like this is going to end us kind of stuff? Like I know you've talked about the accident before.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean, yeah. It's usually while driving. When I remember before we actually flipped over the van, when Harry Bob was still in the van, there was a moment where we had a blowout near Cleveland, Ohio, and the tire fucking exploded. And we were in the middle lane, wedged between two semis. There was a semi on the left, a semi on the right, and we were wedged in between. And Harry Bob like was kind of losing control of the van. And I was perched up on this. We had this bunk. We called it top shelf because it's literally the top shelf. And you get, so I'm laying on my stomach looking out of the windshield. And I'm just thinking to myself, you know, if I'm going to fly through the windshield if anything happens, there's no seatbelts, there's no barrier. It's just me like at a perfect height to just fly out the windshield. And I was thinking to myself, and that shit happened all the time. One time, you know, when Harry Bob was driving, I never wore a seatbelt. I was always in top shelf. I was, you know, sometimes I was like masturbating or sleeping. Like there's so many times where it could have just ended. And I didn't really realize it until 2010 when we flipped our van on some black ice. And I was actually driving at the time. Harry Bob wasn't in the band anymore. So it was Don, Ron, myself, and our friend Steve. And that was like the big jarring moment where I'm like, oh, if we're going to do this touring shit, we're rolling the dice with our lives, you know?
Yeah.
And we flipped the fucking van, and the engine of the E250 is in the front. It's a Ford E250, so it's very front heavy. So when we flipped over, the front of the van did a nosedive into the ground, and the windshield smashed, and it stopped maybe like, I want to say maybe like a half a foot from Don and I's head. And we're hanging upside down in our seatbelts. And we're looking at the ground upside down in the smashed windshield. And then, we all crawled out of the van. Like Ron and Steve didn't have seatbelts on. So they did like a washing machine tumble when we flipped the van.
God damn.
And they had to kick open the side door because we couldn't, the two front seat side doors were smashed in. So they had to kick open the side door, and then we all like pretty much crawled out of the side door, and there was all this ice. It was like an ice storm. So it was like super freezing, super windy. And it was just snowing and there was ice everywhere. It was crazy. And I just remember we all four of us huddled up with a blanket and we just used each other's body heat to keep us warm until the cops came. And then this cop came and he's just like sitting in my car and we're sitting there and we're looking at our van, which pretty much the ass end of the van is up in the air and the nose of the van is smashed into the ground. And the tires are, they're pointing up to the sky. And I remember the cop, he's like, this time of year, we call this stretch of 94 the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And I was just thinking to myself, God damn, like they have a name for it. And the other crazy part is when these emergency vehicles came, they stopped and they're like, are you blah, blah, blah? And we're like, no. And then they kept going because there were accidents all up and down the highway that day. There was cars flipped over in the ditch all up and down the highway. And I remember when I was driving, I was going 45, 50 miles an hour and staying within the grooves. And I'm just like, I'm looking to my left, I'm looking to my right. I'm like, why are all these cars flipped over? And it's because the fucking highway was ice.
God damn, dude.
And I'm like, okay, if I just go slow and stay in the grooves, we'll make it. But the thing is we're going forward. I'm looking to my right. Why is there a car in the ditch? I'm looking to my left. There's another car in the ditch. And then all of a sudden we jackknifed going sideways, moving forward. And then instinctively I hit the brake and then we started spinning. And I thought it was going to be like the movie, like we were going to spin, do a 360. And by the time the nose of the van started going again, we could just start going forward again.
Yeah, it would be the inside car shot, everyone going, ah, and then it just stops. And
then we just keep going forward. But the thing, we did a 360 and everyone was going, ah. And then once the nose of the van was going forward again, that's when we hit the ditch. Boom. And then flipped over on the side.
Oof.
So once we hit the ditch, once that front tire went off the highway, the entire van just flipped on its side. And it was like in slow motion. I remember saying, oh shit. Like when we first started jackknifing, I said, oh shit, hit the brake. Everything was silent. All you could hear was Serj Tankian on the radio because we were listening to Serj Tankian's solo record.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start spinning. It was like slow motion. And then I'm looking backwards on the highway and I'm like, oh man. And then we're spinning and I'm looking forward on the highway and I'm like, okay, we're going to start going forward again. That's when the tire went off the highway, hit the grass. And then all of a sudden it was like it was in slow motion. We just flipped. And then once the nose of the van hit the ground, we skidded like 30 feet. So the nose hits, the glass breaks, and then we just skid. And then once we stopped, I was just like, we screamed for the guys in the back. Is everyone okay? We undid our seatbelts and then we were upside down. We flipped ourselves over, kicked the door, crawled out, and then we did the little huddle thing. But that was the moment where I thought, yeah, we're dead. We're gone.
How has that changed the way you tour, the way you drive around the country, or the way you approach or think about driving around the country when you're on tour?
We try to avoid nighttime drives. Generally what we do is if we have a long drive, I get up at 6 a.m. I get up when the sun comes up and we start driving to the gig. If we're going to do nighttime drives, we do shifts. Like Bobbins and I, one time we drove across the country in 40 hours. And the only reason we didn't make it there in 36 or 38 is because Bobbins ran out of gas and we had to wait 4 hours in Utah for AAA to come bring us gas.
Oh, God. Yeah, now that I think about it, when I was out with you guys in 2014, I never thought about it at the time, but we didn't drive at all at night.
No.
I think, even because you picked me up on the way to the Ringle gig and we were going to go right back through Madison, but the next day was a day off and we stayed in Ringle that night. Yeah. And then drove down to Madison, even though it was a couple hour, 2-3 hour drive, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't far. And if that's the whole reasoning behind it is the 2010 accident. When the 2010 accident happened, I'm just like, dude, like, if first of all, I own this vehicle, Harry Bob's not in the band anymore, so I don't have a babysitter, so I'm the babysitter now, and I'm mildly OCD, and it's actually it's not an actual diagnosis, but the more I realized about the CPTSD that I got from my dad being an asshole when I was a kid, is one of the main signs of having CPTSD is wanting to be in control, is wanting things to be organized, wanting things to be in the right position, wanting things to be, wanting to be in control of things, because if you're in control of something, then that removes an element of danger. And to me, driving during the day, I feel way more in control. I have terrible night vision. I have really bad vision. I'm like really, really nearsighted. And when I drive at night, I have to put contact lenses in because I can just barely see things. So it all has to do with me feeling a little bit more comfortable driving when the sun's up. And the other thing too is if there's inclement weather, this happened on a Psychostig tour, I would say in 2015. Sometimes we'll just cancel a show because I remember we had a gig in Salt Lake City, and they actually closed down the 40 or whichever highway goes through SLC. I think it might be the 40. They actually closed the highway down because a bunch of snow happened, and we just canceled the gig that night. We just didn't play that show on the tour because I'm like, I said we'll meet up with you guys in Vegas.
Yeah.
So we ended up driving, to Vegas instead of going to Salt Lake City, something like that. And it's because I'm like, there's an element of trauma that exists in me from flipping the van, especially because I was the one driving. If anything would have happened to those guys that didn't have seatbelts in the back, I would have blamed myself. So yeah, now the protocol, even though I haven't toured in forever, the protocol is everyone wears fucking seatbelts at all times. If you're not wearing a seatbelt, I will tell you that, hey, if we get in an accident, you might die.
Yeah.
You just realize when something like that happens is being in a touring band is not all fun. You're actually like putting yourself in danger. It's a hazardous job. You're dodging semi trucks on the daily. And like, if you think about it, the more time you spend driving, the more of a chance there is that something bad might happen to you, because the more time you spend on the road, just the odds increase. The odds increase that, a drunk driver you're on a 2-lane highway with no divider, and a drunk driver might just hit you head on. There was a band, I forget what the band was called. They were kind of hot and hopping in the MySpace days, maybe like 07, 08. And they were driving down a 2-lane highway with no divider, and a drunk driver just head-on collision them, and it fucked up. The band broke up. Like, it just fucked everyone in the band up. Like, we're talking big, shitty injuries. So,
was that also what inspired you to get a gear cage?
Yeah, because when we flipped our van, the only thing we had separating our gear from us was a piece of wood. And the piece of wood was held in place by two things called load stabilizers. But essentially all a load stabilizer is a piece of fucking, it's like a long metal tube, and there's rubber ends, and it's a ratchet system. You go like this to the ratchet, and it puts pressure on the rubber feet.
Sure.
But if you really give that thing a push, it'll move.
Yeah, it's basically just a shower curtain rod.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So, yeah, it's like a beefier version of a shower curtain rod. So let's say the impact, we were going a little faster. That piece of wood holding all the gear, it would have just plowed right through the load stabilizers. And that you see a lot of bands that they're traveling and they have like all of their gear just like stacked up, and there's nothing separating it for people. You're talking to the back of people's fucking heads. If a guitar case, if you're going 70 miles an hour and a guitar case comes flying at the back of your head, it'll fucking decapitate you.
Yeah.
And people don't think about that shit. They're just like, oh, we'll just stack up the gear and we'll drive. Yeah. What happens if that gear becomes weaponized? What happens if that gear becomes
a projectile?
A projectile flying at what is it? Velocity times mass equals your head comes off.
Yeah, something like that equals death.
Yeah. So you just have to consider that. And that's why in 2010, when I got my purple van, we had them weld the cage in there. And then when I got my new van in 2016, after I upgraded from the purple van, welded a cage in there, because if there's a welded cage that nothing can penetrate unless you have a Sawzall or something.
Yeah.
No amount of impact is going to undo all of those welding marks going all the way around this steel cage. And it's also pretty good because if anyone breaks into the front of the van, there's no way they can get to that back unless they have a Sawzall or they steal the entire van.
Yeah.
So it's a security measure too. But now my van has a cage that literally whatever you put back there, whether it's a human being or merchandise or gear, you're not going to get to it unless you have heavy duty machinery. So yeah, the accident is what made. And you drove around in the van. You drove around in the purple van.
Yep.
Or the maroon van that had a welded cage in it.
Yep.
Safety measure / security measure.
Yeah.
Yep. We're getting nerdy here. I'm just like,
So, do you remember what the first album was that you bought?
The first full album?
The first music, I guess, that you personally purchased, that was bought with your money, that you went out and you bought that.
We used to go to Sam Goody in the mall and I would get cassette singles. And I was in middle school. I bought White Zombie, Los Exorcisto, Devil Music Volume 1. No, I was buying cassette singles before that. That was in middle. I was in elementary school. I got Living on the Edge by Aerosmith, the cassette single. I got I'm Too Sexy by Right Said Fred, the cassette single. What else did I get? Snow Informa.
I'll lick your bum bum down.
The best part about the Right Said Fred cassette single is on the back side of the cassette single. It had I'm Too Sexy, the Spanish version. And at one point, I had all of the lyrics memorized, like, yo, tan sexy por mi gato. Tan sexy que mi amor. I don't know it anymore, but yeah. So it started off just cassette singles, and the first actual albums that I owned were bought to me. There was a kid named Kevin Holdridge who I was friends with. He was a hockey kid. And we used to listen to Appetite for Destruction on tape. And when the Use Your Illusion albums came out when I was in 4th grade, that was 91, his dad bought me both of the albums on cassette. And I remember he said to my mom, he took my mom aside at my birthday party when I was in 4th grade. He said, now, make sure Neil doesn't get in trouble with those albums. And my mom's like, what? And so then she went and got the Guns N' Roses albums. She went through the lyric sheet and she highlighted every single offensive thing. She sat me down and she said, now, do you understand what any of this means? And she's reading it because, a lot of the lyrics were about drugs and sex. And then Axl Rose said fucking bitch a lot. Stuff like that. And I thought it was awesome because I'm just like, this is so dangerous. And it's funny because my mom taking the tapes away from me actually added to this element of, I shouldn't have this, which made me want it more. So I was sneaking around in my mom's den and I found the tapes. So I took these tapes I had, which are like Batman comic book audiobooks, and I swapped the tapes out. I'm like, if I swap these tapes out, she'll never know I have them. So I'm secretly listening to Guns N' Roses Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 when I'm in elementary school and listening to songs like Back Off Bitch and songs like Get in the Ring. And I'm just like, dude, this is so dangerous. I'm like, this is dangerous. And I loved it. There's an element of just fuck you to the music. And I was just a kid. I was, it was my favorite shit in the whole world. I used to listen to Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 by Guns N' Roses over and over and over again on my little Walkman on the playground. And I would like play soccer with my earphones in, and I would like kick kids and just be like, yeah. Listening to fucking Axl Rose be like, you bitch, get in the ring, motherfucker. But then get this. My mom found the tapes.
Mm-hmm.
Found the Batman tapes, and so she told me, and I'll never forget this. I remember I was sitting on my little bunk bed in my room, and she tells me, Neil, I'm never gonna be able to trust you ever again. And I just remember being like, oh, I was sad about it, but to me it was worth it. My mom never being able to trust me ever again when I was in elementary school.
It was worth it to listen to Axl Rose.
Yeah, just Axl Rose just be vulgar as hell. It was one of those things that just it changes you. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't make the music that I make. I wouldn't have the slant that I have. I wouldn't be, because I was bullied by my dad. And when you're listening to someone that's so defiant, and this is just me thinking about it now in hindsight. You're listening to someone that's like so defiant and so ready to fight anyone that questions them. I feel like Axl Rose empowered me as a kid to be me, because I was always told by my dad that, you know, I'm sit up straight, you know, your manners suck, you know, like stick your chest out. You know, like I was a little insecure fat boy, and I was just bullied by my dad. But when I listened to Axl Rose, I felt fucking 20 feet tall. That song, Get in the Ring.
I feel like, you know, 80s and 90s, early 90s rock, hard rock specifically, did that for a lot of kids, because I feel like there are not as many expectations on kids these days as there were on us. You know, like I feel like we were always expected to behave certain way and whatnot. And so when this rebellious, you know, heavy music, and I mean, I'm sure that it's the same story that goes all the way back to rock and roll in the 60s and shit, and how this is this new thing that is, you know, has everyone clutching their pearls. And you know, for me, when I was a kid, like, I didn't want to do what people told me to fucking do, and rock kind of carried that tone. You know, rock made me feel like, well, shit, why should I do what people tell me to do?
Yeah. It's hard for me to comment because I don't know what's expected of kids these days. All I know is my experience, and my experience is that no matter what my sister or my brother or I did, in the eyes of my dad, who is not that accomplished of a person, it just was never good enough. He was always very quick to point out what we weren't doing right, our shortcomings. You know, he would comment on how we looked, how we acted, and he was just bullying us our whole childhood. Like at least our formative years, the first 15 years of my life before my mom asked him to leave. And it got to the point where the verbal abuse became physical abuse. And that's when my mom got rid of him, which was the best thing that she could have did. She did her best, man. But I feel like I found solace in, you know, just heavy music with its middle finger in there. That's why I got into punk rock. That's why the first time I heard Rage Against the Machine, Killing in the Name, it was 92. I think I was going into 6th grade, and I remember listening to it and just being like, yes, because it's all the things I wanted to tell my dad, but he was bigger than me and stronger than me, and I couldn't do it. So when I was listening to that self-titled Rage Against the Machine album, I became powerful.
I won't do what you tell me.
Exactly. It was a voice that I wish I had. And the older I got, and once I started making my own music, I just stayed on that narrative, like, you know, just but with just my own voice. That like ever since I started writing songs, it's always been "fuck you," because that, you know, just saying all the things to the world that I didn't have the guts to say to my dad, because he just wouldn't let that happen. There's only a couple times I stood up to the guy, and he definitely punched me. So, yes.
Oof. So Downtown Brown is a real unique, musically. You can find influence from anything from, you know, video games to sitcoms, 90s sitcoms, to punk rock, to funk, to metal, to dystopian future, you know, movies. What kind of built in your brain to that sound? What developed that sound for you? Or were you searching for this sound? Was this just something that came together naturally from the nerderies in your brain?
Well, when I put out my first CD in '98, we wore our influences heavily on our sleeve, and that kind of was the blueprint for the band, because there was punk, there was like skate punk, and then there was like some SoCal style Sublime reggae, and then there was like some pretty basic funk stuff, and we just mixed all that together because it was fun. We just wanted to do the type of music we liked. Like, I was into Herbie Hancock and Prince, and then I was really into Guttermouth, and then I was really into Sublime and 311 and shit. So in '98, like, you could just hear all that. And so the blueprint was always just like, write whatever the fuck you want and whatever style you want and put it all together, because why not? And then it's almost like that formula was solidified even more for me when I was in my early 20s. I first heard Mr. Bungle. I'm like, you can do anything you want. You can literally mix up all of this shit in a blender, and you can do whatever you want. Like, hearing bands like Ween, hearing bands like Fish, hearing just, you know, there was in the 90s, there was a lot of eclectic music happening where the genre was blurred a whole lot. So in my mind, I'm just like, okay, well, these people have come before me and they blurred everything. You know, Public Enemy and Anthrax, when they did that song, that was hugely influential to me. It's like, okay, you can blend rap and metal. You could blend reggae and hip hop. You could blend punk rock and fucking funk. You know, you can, why not just do it all in one band? And, you know, so yeah. And then like a little later, you realize there's bands like Fishbone who are essentially doing the same thing, just these multi-genre bands. And those ended up becoming some of my favorite bands and most influential, because I'm like, all right, they're doing exactly what I want to do. They're goofy, but then they're poignant, they're artistic, they're silly, they're eclectic, you know, they're heavy, they're soft. And so I feel like we just fit in the class of those type of bands that just like throw genre rules to the wayside and just make whatever the fuck music they're feeling, and just no rules, just for kind of free expression. And then the lyrics are just, you know, whatever you fucking want them to be. If I want to write a silly ass song, I can. If I want to write a song that's like really heartfelt and you know, really personally expressive, I can do that too. But ultimately, it just confuses everybody. And there's not a whole lot of broad commercial appeal, but it is my story, and it is our story. Like, you know, the band members have changed throughout the years, but from 2001 until now, like there's a story being told. You know, in 2002, there was like optimism, and there was a lot of, and then 2004, it was like a lot of heartbreak. And then 2007 was just pure anger. You know, I'm talking about the albums as I go through. 2010 was just one big inside joke. Grabbleton's Beach, the album Grabbleton's Beach. It was just, and then 2013 was I was trying to be as honest and transparent about what I was going through and what I was feeling. So
pills on there.
Yeah, the album Masters of the Universe, I'd like talk about addiction and talk about, you know,
cutting your dick off and
what's that?
Cutting your dick off.
Yeah. Tits, beer, and sports.
Yeah.
I talk about you know, that's a really serious song. It's me just pretty much being like, okay, I identify as a male, but I don't identify with the cultural status quo that, you know, where males are essentially these cavemen and take things by force. You know,
right. And I think you and I are on the same page on that, where we may not experience gender dysmorphia or gender dysphoria, but we experience a social dysphoria because of what we've been taught men are our whole lives, and we're not that.
And personally, because of the way I was raised and because of my dad being essentially absent, you know, I was never taught about sex. I was never taught about the morality behind sex. No one ever explained consent to me. And so and then I was like, I played sports. So it was weird because, you know, I had my mom have like brief discussions with me about what sex was and respecting females and stuff like that. But ultimately I learned from my, my environment, which was, you know, I hate to say it, it was kind of a rape culture environment. I remember guys on the football team in the locker room would joke around, like, just, you know, rape jokes here, insert rape joke here. And I just was always like, okay, this is how guys act. And this was before woke culture. This was, you know, 98, 99. This was before toxic masculinity was even a term. I mean, it might've been a term, but it wasn't in the cultural conversation. So there was just instances where I remember feeling very uncomfortable about the way that these guys I was on the football team with were acting. But it never was explained to me that, hey, you don't have to be like these guys. And I remember like getting into altering my appearance and stuff and acting a certain way because it would attract females. And I remember being insecure and having it be a big deal, you know, to try to have some sort of like sexual conquest to, you know, like if you got laid, you were the man. I remember I went on spring break, my senior year of high school, I got laid and I was the man. Like I went to a small school and people were like, whoa, Neil got laid, because I didn't get laid before that. Mm-hmm. And it was a big deal. Like dudes were high-fiving me and shit. And I'm just like, this is really fucking weird. Like something, it just, I don't know. The whole thing was really fucking weird. So yeah, like writing a song years later, like Tits, Beer, and Sports is really just putting the nail in the coffin. It's like, yeah, dude, like males in America, it's, I don't know. I don't think it's that way anymore, but I feel like growing up when I did, you were pushed to be a certain way. If you were a guy, it's like you either acted like this or you were a pussy.
I think it's definitely still something that lives on in certain parts of the country, almost certainly.
I don't know, because I'm almost 40, you know, like,
yeah, right. Look, here's a couple of like 40-ish dudes guessing about what it's like for a kid today, whether they're being pushed to the same things that we were by society.
Well, another example I want to give is anyone that was gay in my high school didn't come out until after high school. That's how worried, and for good reason. That's how worried they were that they were going to be persecuted and just bullied.
Yeah.
And I feel like nowadays you can be a teenager and you can be out and you can be yourself and you can be open. And I feel like it's way more accepted.
But it's very accepted, but definitely still something that could lead to your death.
Right. Yeah. But then again, I would need to talk to someone that's like in high school right now, and maybe someone who is openly trans or openly gay or openly non-binary, and just be like, so what's your experience like? And then that would give me a kind of window into it. But all I know is in my high school, no one came out as gay. In my high school, like, you know, you didn't do anything that would give anyone ammo to make fun of you. And
yeah, now that I think about it, I didn't know anyone who was out in high school.
Nope. Not. And what's funny is, what's hilarious is like all my friends that came out after high school, I had a fucking ton of gay friends, you know, but they just, you know, they just didn't want to deal with the bullshit of being in a small town, fucking upper middle class high school and just having all these judgmental pricks, you know, bully them.
Yeah.
And so, but it's funny though, because I look at my Facebook friends list, and a lot of the people I was in the choir with, and a lot of people I fucking kicked it and smoked weed with, and, you know, a lot of gay people. And it's just like, I certainly wouldn't have judged them, but it makes
but it's
sense.
high school, and high school is fucking cruel.
High school is cruel, especially, you know, small town America, upper middle class, predominantly white. It was a strange bubble to grow up in, man.
Yeah, dude, you and me both. St. John, Indiana, I went to high school, and Frankfort, Illinois, actually right by where Psycho Stick used to live in Mokina. I went to Lincoln Way High School, right down the way from there. Lots of my friends, they served Frankfort and Mokina and another third kind of little city out there. But yeah, it's high school in the Midwest, small town kind of high school shit. It's, you know, I had my group of friends kind of, and everyone else wanted to kill me. And that was that.
Yeah. I was kind of popular. It was weird, but
well, of course you were. You played sports.
That's what I'm saying is like I played in a punk rock band because that's who I was at my core. But I also wanted to prove to my dad that I could push people around and I was tough. So subconsciously, that's the more I think about it. That's why I joined the football team, is because I had something to prove. And it was a good experience for me because it taught me a lot about self-discipline and using my body and like exercising. And it really gave me a window into something that I'd carry with me into adulthood. And that's just like exercise is a good thing. But also, like I was saying before, the football team is like supremely toxic as far as the masculine depiction of women, locker room talk. And like I said before, like I lost my virginity on spring break in Cancun, Mexico. And when I came back to school, because it was such a small school, I had bros put their arm around me and be like, dude, heard you had a fun time on spring break. What are you going to do to keep that going? Like, it's like, okay, you conquested. How are you going to continue the conquest? Yeah. And I remember the guy, I'm not going to mention him by name, but I remember the guy who asked me that. And I was just being like, instead of me being like, well, it isn't about that. In my head, I'm like, yeah, he's right. I have to fuck more, you know? And
now that you fucked, you better keep it up or you're going to lose it. You're going to lose that streak, man. You're going to lose that dick's going to fall right off. It's going to be gone.
And that was really, it really kind of fed into me being like, okay, well, I need to be desirable aesthetically to the opposite sex. And I must fuck because if I'm not fucking, then I'm not a man. And then that was a doorway into some really fucking addictive behavior in regards to validation from the opposite sex that started all the way in high school. It's like, all right, if I'm being validated, if a cute girl is willing to have sex with me and thinks I'm cool, then I'm a man. And that, it's crazy because that shit fucking stuck with me for a long time. Because if I wasn't being validated by the opposite sex, I considered myself worthless for years and years and years.
I bet it's something that sticks with everyone still to this day, you know, like people our age or older. are probably still hung up on that and don't have a can't talk themselves out of it, right? Like they don't have the sense to snap away from that and find value in their self. Their value is determined through desirability.
Yeah, and it goes beyond just desirability from, you know, people you're trying to fuck, especially with social media. And I wanted to touch on this. Like, right, I quit social media recently because pretty much like what I realized through therapy is, you know, because of these deep rooted issues I have from my dad bullying me when I was a little kid, that if I'm not being validated from the outside, I can't do it myself. And that's what I've been working on. It's been almost 30 days since I got off social media. And the journey is to disconnect myself from the rest of society until I feel like I can validate myself and feel good about myself enough to where it doesn't matter if I'm validated on the internet. And that's, I didn't realize that for the last 15 years, until very recently, I didn't realize for the last 15 years, I've been solely dependent on my self-worth has been solely dependent on whether or not people on the internet think I'm doing good things.
So with this realization, how do you think that's going to shape, like, once things get back to normal, right? I mean, you're a promotion machine, man. You're a self-promotion machine. When you got something going on, when you got some gigs going on, you've got the posts up, you've got everything all kind of together and whatnot. With that realization, is that going to change the way you approach that kind of stuff?
Yeah, and I got the inspiration from Ron, my old bandmate, who you know.
Love that boy.
Yeah, he says...
I'll have to have him on here at some point too.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd do it in a second. But Ron's advice is, if you're going to actually be on social media, you have to... If you're going to post something, you got to walk away. You know? Don't
watch it.
Don't refresh constantly. Don't look at how many likes something is going to get. And you know, don't really engage in the comments. Just put it out there and then make it really hard to get to on your phone, because that's, especially during the quarantine, during the pandemic, when someone like myself has a lot of time on my hands, I find myself just constantly refreshing my post.
Yep.
How's the engagement doing? And then I find myself scrolling what other people are doing. And there's a lot of people, as far as their stories are concerned, or their posts, I'm like, or their engagement, I'm like, these people are living better lives than me. So, and after watching the documentary, The Social Dilemma, and all of those tech people that were involved in the early implementation of Facebook, Twitter, and whatnot, pretty much they're saying that their main goal is to have you engage for as long as possible on all these platforms.
Their skits in that were really effective on kind of putting into perspective putting into like a human sort of sense. Yeah, like a real they're doing
application.
You know, the three dudes in his phone in that, where they're like, man, what's going on? We haven't seen him in 6 days. I know. Let's give him a notification that his ex is now on the platform and recommend that he send her a wave. Right?
You want to know what's funny about that is the longer I stayed off Instagram started sending me emails because I wasn't responding to any of the notifications because I moved the app away from my home screen. So I started getting emails from Facebook. You've missed this person and this person and this person. Log back on to see what they're doing. They try to pull you back in, you know? But I'm not ready to... This is what I equate it to. I did a thing called the Master Cleanse in 2016 after my dad died. And essentially what the Master Cleanse is it's not as much of a cleanse as it is a fast. For 10 days, you don't eat solid food. For 10 days, all you do is you drink water, lemon juice, cayenne pepper, sea salt, and maple syrup. For 10 days, you have you drink.
I remember when you were doing that. Yeah.
Okay. So I did the Master Cleanse, and this is the way it changed my relationship with food. It made me realize, if I can survive and thrive without solid food for 10 days, because your body goes into starvation mode and you essentially become manic. So I was like taking selfies on the toilet. I was getting real weird with it. I was, but it was very eye opening because it's like, okay, like if I don't need to eat solid food for 10 days, then I shouldn't have to eat as much food once I start eating food again. It totally changed my relationship with food. And the way I'm looking at this social media thing the same way, it's like if I can not log on to Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook for 30 days, then I don't need to log on, as like 1/20 as much as I was logging on.
Yeah.
If I'm more present in conversations with my friends, with my girlfriend, with my mom, if I feel more connected with my actual friends by texting them and having phone conversations with them, then why do I need to see what they're thinking, what they're doing, and what their political leaning is, like what their take on the election is? Why do I need to see all of this from all the people I know and be stimulated at all times? Like, I don't need it. In fact, it's causing me anxiety. It's causing me depression. It's making me feel bad about myself. It's making me compare myself to other people. It's making me beat myself up, and it's wasting a lot of my time. So the way I look at it is once I post on Instagram again, I have to just go on there, do my spiel, and walk the fuck away.
Yeah.
And that's the goal, because if I go on there and then I'm like, oh, I want to see how well that post is engaging, and I'm refreshing it constantly, because that dopamine release, every time you get that like, or every time you get that comment, someone tells you you're doing good, you're like, and it makes you feel good. But that's the thing.
Shower the dopamine upon me.
Exactly. But that's the thing is the more I talk to my therapist, is I shouldn't need any of that validation, not from someone that I find attractive from the opposite sex. I shouldn't need them to validate me for me to feel fucking like I'm good. I don't need strangers to tell me, oh, that cover you did, or, oh, that video you made is good. I shouldn't need any of that. So I'm essentially fasting from all of that right now. And I feel like way better about myself, because I can wake up in the morning and I can meditate and I can be like, okay, you're a dude, and this is who you are, and this is what you've done, and you're still alive, and you have the whole rest of your life to figure all this shit out, and you're doing your best, you're trying really hard, and let's try to have some fun, instead of waking up and being like, oh, this person is doing this, I can't believe that. Oh, I can't believe this politician said this. And, oh, I can't believe that this person isn't wearing a mask. And I can't believe that my friend actually believes this. And I can't believe Trump said that. And I can't believe that people are dying. And I can't believe, and like, I would much rather wake up and tell myself, you're doing good, you're still alive, let's see what sort of fun we can have, than wake up and open my phone and have it be like, the world is ending, and you are nobody. The world is ending and you aren't shit. The world is ending and you're fucking terrible.
Yeah. And you and I talked about this, and the whole, like, the way that it feels when we put as much as we do into what we create and no one watches it, or no one reacts to it, or, no one cares. Our brain interprets that as,
I'm no good.
They're not interested in you.
That's not necessarily true.
Yeah. And you put it great. Like, I don't have to watch or listen to every one of your podcasts to support and love you.
Yeah. In fact, you don't have to watch my shit at all. I know that we're friends.
Yeah.
But
I do watch your shit because it's also really good and entertaining.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. But ultimately, people are living their own lives, and if you're a creator and you're putting out like 3 videos a week, you can't expect every single person that knows who you are to be engaged in every single thing you do. They get it. That's why if I do a podcast and I have someone like of some notoriety on there, that podcast will perform better, because they want to hear what that person has to say. Everyone else, they know what I have to say.
Yeah.
They get it. They don't want to listen to me talk for fucking 3 hours a day. They get it. You know, they're glad I'm doing stuff with my time. They're glad I'm creating stuff, but I can't get bent out of shape if everyone I know isn't engaged with everything I do. I should be making stuff just because it's fun, just because I enjoy being creative, just because I enjoy doing stuff. And it should end there. All of the validation that I'm hoping to seek and, you know, monetary compensation and some sort of notoriety, all of that shouldn't even fucking matter. And I feel like if we apply that mentality of like just doing stuff because it's fun, we're going to have more enjoyable lives. Like you should be doing this podcast right now because you want to, not because you think it's going to lead. If it takes off and it leads to some like grandiose existence where all your dreams come true, that's fucking amazing.
I don't know, man. I'm totally doing this purely so I can become the world's next millionaire because I think we don't have enough, and I want to join those ranks. And yeah, no.
and the problem is in today's internet age with the amount of content, it's like content, like you were talking before, making content is so accessible now that every single dickhead has a podcast, including myself.
Yep.
And every single dickhead is making music or making videos. They have a YouTube channel, and that's and so the odds that you or I or anyone that makes stuff that it's gonna just fucking blow up is probably pretty slim, which is why people like you and I, or even my friend John Yablansky,
he's been doing great though. He's really starting to pick up quite a lot. And
Davey 504 keeps shouting out. But the thing, he and I have a lot of candid conversations where it comes down to like he wants his content to be widely consumed. We all do.
Yeah.
But he's not internalizing. He's not beating himself up if he's doing his best and he's having a good time and he's actually like learning a lot in the process. He's growing as an artist and as a musician. And I think, you should get him on here because all of the work that he's doing on Fiverr, he's like one of the most incredible bass players I've ever heard. But all of the work he gets on Fiverr is for guitar. He's amazing.
I saw he did a video about how he's been approaching Fiverr.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting. He's a fucking phenomenal everythingist. You remember when we were in Erie, Pennsylvania,
in that weird haunted place,
and Basement Transmissions.
Yeah.
And we crashed at the venue. We stayed downstairs, and there was a drum kit in the fucking room. And John Ma just sits down at that drum kit and starts kicking out some just like ridiculous beats. And I know we were, at least Bobbins and I were like, what the fuck?
Yeah. He's good at everything.
Yeah.
He can sing too.
He just does it.
He can sing too. He's like one of the most talented people I know for sure.
Yeah. Love that dude.
Yeah. And what's cool is when you separate yourself from that ego and when you separate yourself from the obsession of trying to become successful, you get like, I can see John when like he's gotten multiple shout outs on Davey 504's channel. He was the small PP guy. And then
he's not small PP guy anymore.
Yeah. Well, most recently he got a huge shout out where like Davey 504 actually shouted out his channel. And Davey 504 tried to play a bass line that for all intents and purposes, I think he couldn't do it. Like John played a bass line that Davey 504 couldn't emulate.
Close. He came close, but it's not quite right.
But those percussive rakes that he does and the off rhythm, like kind of percussive slap technique that he uses, it's some like really advanced shit. And it's very signature to John. So, but there's a part of me if it were me 5 years ago, I would see something like that happening. Even if it was one of my friends, and I probably would be like, well, why am I not getting a shout out by a huge YouTuber? Why am I not getting what I deserve, which is this, that, or this? But what's nice about where I am now is that, like, I see my friends in Psychostick doing very well with the live streaming thing, and I'm happy for my friends. I see John getting shouted out by Davey 504, and I'm happy for my friends. And I just want to be at a point where no matter what happens to anyone, including myself, I can just be happy creating shit and not worrying so much about the analytics, not worrying about the views, not worrying about the clicks, and just being a creator. Just because when I was in middle school, I used to sit in my parents' basement and just draw pictures, and I was the happiest I ever was. Middle school, high school, when I just did shit and it didn't matter who was watching, I just did it. And I feel like once I became like addicted to MySpace in 2015, and I started posting about myself all the time, and I started basing that outside validation. I started basing my happiness on that. And I didn't realize I was doing it. It was all subconscious, but like, I just want to get back to me listening to White Zombie in my mom's fucking basement, drawing pictures of cartoon guys with laser beams coming out of their ass. Like, I want to become that guy again. And then once I'm there, I think I'll be pretty content. I just want to make stuff. I just want to make cool shit. I want to make myself laugh. I want to have a good time. And if people watch it and if people enjoy it, that's a plus. It shouldn't be, I only value myself if people are watching, laughing, or giving me a thumbs up.
God damn, that just made me think about the fact, like, you know, when I moved out here to Arizona, you know, I was coming from not having a job in Madison, and didn't feel a huge rush to get a job when I was out here. But so when I was going into interviews, like, I flat out told every interviewer, look, I just want to do cool shit with cool people.
Yeah.
And, you know, I need to take my own advice and drill it back down to just that. Just want to do cool shit with cool people.
It's hard. It's hard because that's the other thing about that documentary, because the way it portrayed the inner workings of social media, it all, like, the currency is your time, but the way they get you hooked is through your insecurities. And if you're an insecure person like myself, and you grew up wanting to feel secure, and it never was there, you wanted to feel secure about yourself, and you always felt like you were never good enough. It's the perfect thing to suck you in, because once people start petting you and telling you you're good, you're never going to want to let that go. And these are all just like recent realizations for me. The whole me wanting to get back to middle school version of myself, where I just want to do cool shit with cool people. Yeah, like, I should be following my own advice. But the reason I keep repeating it so much is because if I feel like if I am vocal about it, it'll get drilled into me.
Right.
And I can just live the rest of my life just feeling good about being a person that did what the fuck they wanted to do while they were alive, regardless of the outcome. I was so obsessed with the outcome being success, because I wanted to show my dad, and he's dead. My dad's not even alive anymore. So there's no way I can even prove him wrong anymore. I just wanted to show him. It's like, oh, you didn't think I could do it. Well, I did it. But the thing is he's not even around anymore. So who do I have to prove to anybody anything other than, like, the only thing I want to prove is that I can live an enjoyable life without beating myself up because I never achieved the accolades I think I deserved. Like, it's all just horse shit. You know?
Yeah.
I just don't fucking care anymore. Yeah, I wasted so many years of my life feeling bad about myself because I didn't have some sort of like grandiose form of success. And it's like, it's just so fucking dumb. I'm like really mad at myself.
So how do you think all of that self-growth and these kinds of realizations are going to change the way you approach the band?
That's a good question. I think it's just going to make me care less about whether or not people like it. And I just saw Fantano just interviewed the group Idols from the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just talking about how everything they do, they're just doing it for themselves. And there was a point, you know, and especially on the last album I put out an album in 2018. And my goal on that album was I want it to sound like this and this and this, because I want my connections in Southern California I was kind of pandering a little bit.
Sure.
I'm like, if I play some ska here, we don't fucking play ska that much. But I was like, all right, we'll put this song on here because it was an attempt for my band to sound as SoCal as possible, so we could kind of work our way into the inner workings of this whole SoCal thing going on. And I like the album was it was from the heart. I was extremely transparent and personal, but I think ultimately going into the future, I'm not going to be trying to infiltrate anybody or anything or care about being liked. I kind of really want to go back to the Graveltons mentality, which was like, we're just doing this because it makes us laugh and it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we don't have any grandiose expectations of what we do being liked by anybody, nor do we care, then it'll be the most pure shit going into the future. You know, and especially if those involved in it are they're involved because they just want to be part of something cool and not because it's some payday.
Right.
You know, because once you get into the LA thing, there's a lot of great players out here, but a lot of people, you know, they want to be involved in projects that will like lead to a paycheck or some sort of greater notoriety. And that makes sense, because if you get good enough to be a musician, you come to LA, like you come to LA to be a professional musician. You don't come to LA just to slum it with some band because you think it's cool.
Yeah.
The thing about Detroit is that people they just make art and they just make music because they like it and it's fun. And that's the world I came from. And then I ended up in LA where it's just a little different. And not that it's a bad thing, because I get it. If you're really good at something, you should get paid for it. And everyone out in LA is really good. You know, like most of the gigging musicians I know are fucking spectacular musicians.
Sure.
And I was lucky to find some people that would play in downtown Brown for next to nothing. And I'm very grateful for that. But we certainly didn't rehearse a whole lot. You know, in Michigan, when it was Ron and Don and I, and Ron and Bobbins and I, we would rehearse like between 1 and 2 times a week just because we just liked it, you know? Like Bobbins would drive an hour to rehearsal every week. I wouldn't give him any gas money. We didn't have any money.
Yeah. It was, I'm sure, you know, therapeutic to fucking jam out with your friends and just time to spend with the band family.
Yeah. So going into the future, yeah, if I'm making music as a band with my friends, that's what I want it to be. I want it to be, we're doing this for us. We're keeping, it's just the purity of creating and entertaining ourselves. And then eventually we might share it with the world. And I want to go into future projects, but the same way I feel about future promotion on social media. I just want to put it out there, and I don't want to sit around and fucking hyper analyze if everyone likes it. I don't want to beat myself up if it's not received the way I want it to be received. I just want to fucking make stuff for me and just continue, you know?
Because, or you could be like Fat Mike, who has regularly said that everything he does for Greg Graffin in Bad Religion, because Bad Religion's his favorite band. So Everything he does, he doesn't give a shit if anyone likes what NoFX makes. Everything NoFX does is for bad religion.
That's fucking funny. Well, yeah, and Mr. Brett, like NoFX got signed by Epitaph, so that's funny. I wonder how much truth there is to that statement. If he's just like, if he is still to this day is like, oh, I just want bad religion to like it.
Yeah, I feel like everyone could probably, do with a little removal from the aftermath of their creative endeavors, or rather removal from the aftermath of the release of their creative endeavors, and not be so concerned with reception. I think that would be just good for mental health across the board.
I just think people like you and I, small creators, are going to be, or like my friend John, just any small creators I know, we're just going to be, the less hard we are on ourselves, the happier we're going to be ultimately. And it's going to make us make better shit, because we're
not going to feel defeated before we even start the next thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and the other thing I'm noticing too is like being off social media, I have YouTube subscribers that get notifications when stuff comes up. So my views have actually been consistent even without me plugging shit consistently on Instagram and Facebook. So if anything, it's made me realize that it's like, okay, I can make stuff and I don't have to fucking shove it up everyone's ass every time I make something, because the people who are engaged, which are my YouTube subscribers, they'll get a notification, they'll watch it, and they'll enjoy it. And if someone's following me on social media, it doesn't need to be like every single day, I made this, check me out. Now check out this, check me out. Look at me. Tell me I'm great, please. Because if you don't, I'm going to feel bad about myself. I'm so tired of being the self-promotion guy. It's just exhausting. And I kind of just don't care anymore. If millions of people were going to like what I do, they would have already probably figured it out by now. So I just have to accept that I'm a dude that does things, and I just need to keep doing it because I like it, and I need to just not beat myself up, because I know that my shit's cool. I think my shit's fucking dope. But
yeah, I especially feel like now that we're in the time when everyone's streaming and stuff like that, it is just a joy to see you go at that loop pedal and just fucking make yourself laugh.
That's all it's about. It really, especially like I'll eat a little bit of THC. And this other day I started streaming, and I just had a fucking blast. Cause when the pandemic first started, it was like, all right, I'm going to go on stream, but I have to get donations. I have to make money because I have to pay my bills. Like this is, I right out of the gate, I monetized it right out of the gate. The metrics were important. The number of people watching me were important. And it was like toxic right out of the gate. It's like, dude, like, don't turn this into a job right away before you even know what you're fucking doing.
Yeah.
So right out of the gate, I'm like, and the thing is right out of the gate, my first stream that I did, I got $500 in donations. So right out of the gate, I'm like, oh, this is how it's going to be all the time, which is like, no, it's not. It tapered the fuck off. Like people just had a little bit of PUA, that pandemic unassistance. The pandemic unemployment
unassistance.
You know what I'm trying to say.
Well, I know what you're trying to say, but it's also very accurate, right? Especially right now.
Yeah, I got that.
Because it's not coming again.
I'm on that pandemic unassistance. That's funny. Yeah, that's what PUA stands for. Pandemic unassistance. No, because it definitely assists. Even if you're on the low tier, it definitely assists. But it's gonna go away soon. But either way, those first streams, I'm just like, I saw what Psychostick is doing, and whenever Psychostick does a stream, they get like $3,500 a stream. But they're
Well,
a band.
they do real smart things with their stream. Like when we're talking hustle, they are next level hustle. Like because the whole buy someone on the stream a drink, buy someone on the stream a shot 'em alert, like that kind of stuff is real smart.
Oh, their business model is something that I've been emulating since 2012. In every, whether it's the live band, whether it's the merch machine, whether it's the streaming, whether it's the online presence. Yeah, they are they're like our older brothers that you just look at and you're like, okay, what are they doing? Okay, I got to do that, but just it's going to be just less good.
And at some point, I'm going to have Josh on here for sure.
He's a really smart dude. He's gone through a lot of shit lately. I really wish him well.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's the thing is I feel like the more I've been disconnected from social media, the more I can just do something like go live on the internet, not care if anyone's watching, and just have fun and just enjoy, not be so fucking obsessed with the metrics. Just be like, oh, well, last time I went live, only 5 people were watching, and the time before 20 were. Oh no, who cares? Just do it because it's fun. It's fun to jerk off with this loop machine. It's fun to play guitar. It's fun to sing. It's fun.
Seriously, it is joyous to watch you in your chipmunk voice make yourself laugh, because then it just kind of becomes this fucking snowball effect of then you hear this little chipmunk ass laugh and it's more and more. It's fucking great, man. It's tons of fun.
Well, cool. Yeah, I'm glad. And honestly, if I would have never bought this thing if I didn't start like seeing Marc Rebier, dude. I mean, he's really, really talented musician on top of being really good at manipulating this little machine here. And
he fucking cracks me up, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially anything that I do is just like Marc Rebier, but with a guitar, with shredding.
He recently posted a photo on Twitter of him and Snoop Dogg.
Oh, he's famous. And that's why it's funny, because I'm always late to the game as far as the stuff that I do. Because I remember what did I do that ended up becoming, someone else did it. Oh, the Lonely Island. We did Get Your Wobble On.
Yeah.
And then the Lonely Island came out with a song which was essentially the same thing. It's have a motherfucking baby on the floor.
Yeah.
School it at the door. Like, dude, the whole premise is you're a rap guy telling people to do terrible things. And so Lonely Island did that, but they're just in a way bigger position. So the thing with Marc Rebier is like, no matter how good I get at this looping shit, people are always going to be like Loop Daddy, because he made it famous.
Like, I don't know about that. I'd say Reggie Watts, man. Yeah.
But I would say in mainstream culture right now, more people know who Marc Rebier is.
Yeah, probably.
And so if you got a looper and you're acting like an idiot, people are going to say Loop Daddy. So it's kind of hard. You have to just find a way to be yourself. But if you're doing some sort of like live looping, people are just going to say you're ripping off. I actually had a dude on YouTube that like went on this long rant, and he started like spamming Marc Rebier's Facebook page with my link saying this guy's ripping you off. And it's just like, there's a lot of musicians that are stuck by themselves that use loopers.
Dude, like Zoe Keating has been using a fucking loop pedal and calls it quantum cello because she loops her cello. Like, loop pedals are nothing new.
Yeah, but there's a lot of dumbasses that are like, oh, there's only one person that uses a looper, and it's Marc Rebier, you know?
Yeah, it's dumb. That's like going to another guitarist and being like, this dude over here, he's playing guitar too. He's ripping you off.
Yeah. Except guitar is a way more widely used instrument than an RC505. If someone sees an RC505, they're like, oh, Marc Rebier. He definitely made this machine famous. I would say.
I want to get one.
But ultimately what it comes down to is we're in a pandemic. I don't I don't jam with people, and I want to continue acting like an idiot and having that free form kind of stream of consciousness thing. That, because the best part about being in a band is when you get up on stage, you may have the songs rehearsed, but in between the songs, there's so much room for improv and fucking with the audience, doing crowd work. There's a real free flowing kind of tapestry or canvas that you have to just paint whatever's going on in your head. Every show is different because of that. And the thing is I don't have that anymore. So the only way I can do that is every time I go live, I'm just like, all right, how am I I'm going to make up a new song, or I'm going to like talk about different stuff. And it's a chance for me to really let out that part of me that just wants to be free and go nuts and just be creative on the fly. And that's, yeah. And then do it in front of a live audience on the internet. It's very strange. It's a weird place. Weird place.
That kind of reminds me of, something that I noticed when we were on the road together for that month or so, is that you definitely have a switch that you flip once it's showtime. Because off stage, you're, real chill, real relaxed. It's almost like you're preparing for the oncoming storm. And then you hit that stage and you're, wow! And then you get off that stage and you got my Waji.
Yeah, my fucking Waji. Well, I think like that's not necessarily saying that that's a strange or unique thing. It was just kind of a realization that I had that there's it's different modes that you get yourself in. And as I have pursued performance more and more and being a host of things and stuff like that, I understand, like, leading up to it, I am super low energy. Just everybody leave me alone. I'm going to sip on this beer. And once the microphone's in my hand, it's completely different, and I'm, high energy and out there. I just never realized, I don't think, until I was on the road with you, kind of how that worked. Yeah, you're either on or off, and when you got to be on, you got to be on. And let me just put it this way: when I was drinking a lot, I was the guy that I am on stage a lot. I was that guy off stage too, and that shit's exhausting, because if you're a fucking psychopath on stage and then you're all drunk and you continue to be that person off stage, it's gonna get you into trouble, and it's just too much. And so when I sobered up in 2008, I quit drinking. I really just started having to turn that person on once the mic was live, because there's no point in me attracting that much attention to myself when I'm just like at a grocery store or just like hanging out with my friends. It's too much energy. So I just store it all up, and I just kind of let it live in me. And then there's a catharsis to it. You get up on stage and you just you throw up all over everybody, metaphorically.
Yeah.
And with the live streams, it's sort of the same thing. It's like, okay, I am a pretty quiet guy, and I'm just living my life, and I'm making my stupid videos, and I'm making myself giggle. But like once I'm on stream, it's time to have fun. It's time to let loose. And yeah, I'm not as loud and intense when I'm doing the streaming as I am like when I'm on stage with my actual band. But it's the same idea. Like, the mic's live and it's showtime. Like, put on a fucking show, and you have to be like louder and more intense than you are in real life. At least that's the way I look at it, is if I want to capture the attention of all these drunk idiots, I have to really fucking give it some oomph.
You have to override or be louder than whatever is holding their attention.
Yeah, and in a live concert setting, I'm pretty good at that. So
yeah, I would agree.
And there's And it's therapeutic because if you walk into a grocery store, if you walk into the gas station, you start screaming at the top of your start just fucking like deep throating things, people are gonna call the cops on you. But what's weird is if you have a guitar and you're on stage, you could literally fucking scream and just yell and just make terrible noises, and everyone's like, yeah. They're not like, look, take this fucking guy away. They're like, look, yeah, brother, yeah. So that's the way I look at it. It's the only chance in life you're gonna get to be super fucking loud and weird without there being like something negative following it.
Well, I think we're approaching 2 hours here, so I want to ask one last question that I think this might be like kind of the sign-off question for these episodes.
Okay.
Because I think this might be, one of the more important things. If you had any bit of advice to give to, like, say, younger you is just kind of discovering this podcast and thinking about like getting into music and pursuing it, what's like the most important advice you would give that kid?
Don't be an alcoholic. Because the way I look at everything that happened until I was like 27, 28 years old and I quit drinking is just a lot of wasted time. And I just did a lot of damage to my body, where if I had a bit of a sounder mind, I could have spent those years really honing and focusing on improving my craft and my ability to do things related to that craft. I needed to fall flat on my face in order for me to realize what needed to be fixed about my life. But yeah, don't take everything too seriously, and don't fucking be an alcoholic is what I would say to myself.
I was going to say, do you regret the years that you spent mired in alcoholism?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You don't see them as, I look back on some of the mistakes that I've made in my life, and I don't look at them as regret. I look at them, as points of learning, which helped develop me into who I am today. Do you take that approach with looking back on that? Is it something that, like, while you may feel embarrassment or repulsion to look back on, do you recognize it as being a part of what made you who you are?
Well, absolutely. I think if I didn't go through all that, I definitely wouldn't be who I am right now. I wouldn't have that perspective. I wouldn't have that. I've been through hell and I've seen the other side of it. There wouldn't be a redemption arc.
Right.
And that's the thing that Josh from Psychostick told me, because I was such a drunk piece of shit. They didn't want to work with me in the late 2000s. And I remember in 2012, after we did our second tour together, we played this gig at Peabody's, rest in peace, in Cleveland. And Josh mentioned something. He's like, dude, you literally burned every single bridge, and then you got sober, and then you repaired all of them. Maybe not all of them, but he's like, you did it. He's like, you did it. So
yeah, I haven't made it back to Warped Tour yet.
Well, Warped Tour is gone now. We did play Warped Tour in 2010, and one of the guys that was there when we got kicked off, he's like, "Oh, you guys again."
Oh, you did play Warped Tour after getting kicked off?
Just one date. And then I ran into Kevin Lyman, the Warped Tour guy, the guy behind. I ran into him playing with HR last year, and I mentioned the band, and he had nothing but good things to say about it. He totally forgot that he personally kicked it. He's like, "Oh, Downtown Brown, yeah." It's like, "You guys were great." And I'm like, you don't remember when in Cleveland when you fucking told us to get your shit and get the fuck out of here? Yeah, and that most of that had to do with like our volatile band members mixed with alcohol. But I think there's something to be said about falling flat on your face and there being a redemption arc, because if you don't fail if you don't fail miserably, then there's not a chance for you to pick yourself back up and learn from your mistakes. So I could say to the younger version of me, don't be an alcoholic, but also I don't know if I would be the same person if I didn't fuck up so bad, you know?
Yep.
So yeah, and there's no such thing as a time machine. So it is what it is. I'm 39 years old, and there's some lost years in the history, but I feel like where I am right now, I'm getting a grasp on being able just to like be at peace with, you know, what little bit of success I've cultivated and who I am as a person, and try I want to age somewhat gracefully and just not fucking beat myself up so much. I've been too hard on myself for too long, and I just want to be a little bit nicer to myself.
Don't worry, man. By the time that we're in our 60s, we'll probably finally look at the things that we're doing and be like, you know what? Fuck it. This is fun. 20 years from now.
Well, the goal is for me is to look at it right now and be like, this is fun. Like I'm talking to my friend right now on his podcast. This is fun. Like
hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. It's not so bad.
I miss you.
Life is not so bad. I miss you too, man. And it sucks because we don't live that far away from each other. You're in Arizona. I'm in California, but I ain't going anywhere. I ain't hanging out with anybody.
Yeah, no. You know, what's funny is we're probably as far away from each other now as we were when you were living in Michigan and I was living in Wisconsin.
Yeah, because Madison's 7 hours. And then from here to where you're at is like 6.5, 7.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, except you're in a weird red desert.
Yep.
And I'm in a brown on fire desert. So good times.
Well, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
I have a website, which essentially is just a landing page for my social media and YouTube. It's called neilp.com. I have a podcast. I stream on Twitch. And I have social media that I haven't posted on in 28 days. So,
goddamn.
But mostly the youtube.com/Neil P. And I've posted the last 7 days. I posted a video 5 of the last 7 days. So I'm just like living on YouTube and just making a lot of content and doing it for me because that's my goal. Do shit for you. Do it for you. Be a creator and make stuff for you. If people like it, that's fucking dope. But don't beat yourself up. There's so much content out there. If you're a content creator and not a lot of people are watching your shit, join the fucking club. It's all good. Just have fun. You know? Find other ways to make money. You can't go into YouTube being like, oh, I'm gonna monetize this immediately. No, it's not that easy. It's not that fucking easy. And there's a lot of luck involved too. And the algorithm has to be loving on you as well. And
may the algorithm ever be in your favor.
Yeah. And I think so much of that has to do with you making content that follows some sort of a template, you know?
Yeah.
And if you're just, you know, if you're a person like you or myself, where we're just making podcasts and making videos, it's tough. It's a tough thing. So just do it. Just do it because it's fun.
And if you want to make weird shit for people like you know, like that enjoy weird shit, it's hard to find the audience because the algorithm is deciding your exposure to that audience. And if it doesn't conform to, you know, these certain sort of things, then you're not going to get in front of eyes as much.
And that's okay.
But, you know, think about like when you found Mr. Bungle, right? Like that's an awakening experience.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So finding that weird shit, finding those weird fucking hidden gems, that's where it's at.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you can't quantify your impact on other people based off of numbers.
Yeah.
I get emails from kids and from people that they say like, I wanted to commit suicide and then I listened to this song of yours. Or like when I was in Iraq, I used to listen to this song of yours. Like a click, a like, and or a view on YouTube, you don't know if just one number could be affecting someone in a profound way. So for you to just be like, oh, my value is only 100 views on this video. What if that video is the video that someone was watching in a war-torn country while they were away from their friends and family, and it provided them some sort of feeling of relief?
Yeah.
And I know this because people will reach out to me and say that, but it also makes you wonder. It's like, you don't know the full influence you might have on the rest of the world.
How many people aren't reaching out to you?
That's the thing. And especially when I was really active in like the mid 2000s and stuff, there was a lot of young kids that, I have a friend that came out as trans not too long ago, but they had me come and like perform with their band. And I was just like, yeah, sure. Why not? I'll do it. And they gave this intro to me saying how their music made me realize I could feel safe being who I am. And before I like got on stage with them, and I'm just like, wow, because the song in particular that they were referencing was Happy Music for Happy People, which is a song that just says, I'm dancing, I'm prancing, I'm acting real gay, I'm happy, I'm gay, I'm gay, I'm gay. It says gay like 1,000 times. And, I just think it's a funny, goofy song. And it's just a celebratory song, but the fact that a young person could listen to a goofy fucking dumb song that I wrote with my friends and have it make them feel like give them the courage to come out as gay or trans and feel okay about it, is you can't quantify that with a YouTube view.
Yeah.
You can't. That right there is real world beauty, I think. And when I'm getting all down on myself about numbers and about streams and about, compensation and just like feeling like I'm not successful, dude, it's like, if I helped one person the way I helped that person just by being myself, it's fucking lovely, And you have to just consider all of this when you're starting to beat yourself up about dumb shit that doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Sorry I talk so much, Ryan.
Man, I love that you talk so much. I love that you speak your mind. I think that's super important.
Yeah.
But we're going to end the podcast there. Thank you so much for being my first guest, Nebo. And thank you for inspiring me to have these kinds of one-on-one conversations, because I really like the idea of, getting into music, the musical history of people that we might look up to and or friends who have pursued music, and I think we've all got a lot of interesting stories to tell. And
oh yeah. And ultimately, whether or not you look up to someone or whether or not they're a musician or they're an artist or whatever, like, we're all just human beings. And when I started my podcast, that I didn't realize how profoundly hearing different perspectives would kind of shape who I am and give me this. It's like every single interview I do, I learn something different and I get a little bit more of a perspective on my own life just based on hearing all of these cool stories. So if there's any takeaway from having like an interview style podcast, it's just like you learn so much about yourself just by learning about others. And I think that's a cool thing.
Hell yeah, dude. So. Well, I am going to play us out with Happy Music for Happy People. I think that's an appropriate song to finish us off with.
I'm here to tell you that I'm gay. How did you come to that conclusion? Take a seat, Harry Bob. let me tell you, son, it was a dark and stormy night. Went to the DTV website, my jaw dropped, didn't know what to say. Everybody thinks that Waze is gay. So I'm like, yo, what's this gay shit about? Came determined to find out. Picked up a Webster's dictionary to find out exactly what gay be. After reading what the book did say, I realized that everyone I know is gay. My mom, my dad, my sister too. My dog is gay and so are you. We make happy music for happy people. I guess that makes our music gay, and the people that listen to us are happy. What do you think about that, bitch?
Oh, come on, sing it with me.
I'm dancing, I'm prancing, I'm acting real gay because I'm dancing, I'm prancing, I'm acting real gay because I'm dancing, I'm prancing, I'm acting real gay because I'm dancing, I'm prancing, I'm acting real gay because I'm happy. I'm prancing, I'm acting real gay because I'm happy. I'm prancing, I'm acting real gay because I'm happy. I'm prancing, I'm acting real gay because I'm happy. I'm prancing, I'm acting real gay because I'm happy. I'm prancing, I'm acting